Hey guys, welcome back to Jessin Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm here with a weekly wrap-up, even though it's late. Better late than never, right? Okay, so I got distracted this past weekend after doing a vlog about books set in Louisiana, and just completely slipped my mind that I needed to do a wrap-up for the week, because I am going to try to do the weekly wrap-ups instead of doing like mid-month and end of the month, because if you know me, you know that I like to talk a lot, and my videos tend to be long, and it's hard for me to say everything I want to say about a book if I'm doing too many at one time. I have a lot more books that I want to actually get into a little bit of detail. So we're going to start off with Always Practice Safe Hex by Juliet Cross. Today, in fact, is the release day for the 4th installment of the Stay a Spell series. I absolutely love this series. It is set in New Orleans. It's supernatural, and the heroine is Livy Savoy. The entire series is about the Savoy sisters, so each sister has a book. And her hero is Gareth, who is a Grim Reaper. Now, in this world, Grim Reapers are kind of a mystery, like their exact abilities. Nobody really knows what they're capable of. All you know is that Grims tend to have like lots of information about every faction, every supernatural faction, and if you need some information, you can go to a Grim for it. But in this book, we actually get to see a lot more of what the Grims are capable of, and like the nuances of power between each separate Grim, because no Grim has like the same exact power. Some Grims have very specific powers, like Gareth. So I really love these characters, even though I'm biased. It doesn't matter, because I really love the series, like truly, deeply in my soul. I feel like this is such a fun paranormal series. Like if you've never read paranormal before, I highly recommend Wolf Gone Wild, the first book in the series, because I think it's just really easy to jump into supernatural without it being too heavy. If this will be like your gateway paranormal romance, I think it's just a great series. But like I said, the Savoy sisters, each Savoy sister, they're a witch, and each has a special ability. Livy is an influencer, so she can kind of compel people. And this is sort of an enemies to lovers, because they're both competing in this competition. They basically have to like raise money for a charitable supernatural cause, and they're put on the same team, which is funny because they don't like each other. The first time that Gareth met Livy, he accused her of using her like influencer abilities during like the competition, and she resents that. She's like, you know that I would never do that. I would absolutely never do that. So there's some contention between both of them, and being paired in the same group where they actually have to work together. They have to select a cause that their group is going to support for the entire competition. Livy's suggestion is to support werewolves, because werewolves throughout the course of the series have kind of been on the periphery. Most supernatural beings don't really trust werewolves because they could be very volatile. Sometimes they don't have control over their inner beast. And Livy wants to change that. She has 2 werewolves that have now pretty much married into her family, and she thinks that the prejudice against them needs to stop, so she wants to bring awareness towards that cause. Well, Gareth has a separate cause. He says that supernatural orphans are extremely overlooked, and he, being a person who is in the foster care system, knows how difficult that is to be a supernatural child, and maybe you're not placed in a family that knows about the supernatural world, so you have to hide those abilities. You don't really get anybody to guide you in that world, and they're overlooked. Their group does end up by choosing Gareth's cause. And I really love the forced proximity of the situation. Since they're in the same group, they have to be near each other. They have to learn to work together. And it's definitely the perfect enemies to lovers setup. Lots of great sexual tension between them. And Gareth is freaking hot, let me just say. There's some really great dirty talk. Livy and Gareth's sexual tension is like really great, and I also love the moments when Gareth is kind of brought into the Savoy fold. So like the Savoy sisters, they're all really close. I feel like they collected, like the sisters have collected a bunch of these misfit heroes, their counterparts, and like enveloped them into the family. And if anybody needs a warm, loving hug from the Savoys, particularly Clara, my sweet sunshine, aura, witch Clara, it's Gareth. Gareth totally needs this. So it was like just so satisfying to see him have like a found family once he and Livy like got together, and I really love that. Also, the ending. There was some drama that happened in the end, and we really got to see some Grim powers, and I was fascinated, riveted, because I was unaware of the specific powers that Gareth would have. We also get some more page time with Henry, and Henry is another Grim that we've been knowing since book 1. And that was really fascinating. I was like, whoa, this feels so cool. Like, it was just a really cool scene. Obviously, it's a spoiler, so I don't want to get into it, but I just loved it. Loved it, 5 stars. And I can't believe that we only have 2 books left in the Stay a Spell series. I'm like, It's almost over, and I don't want it to be. The next book that I picked up was Duchess by Day, Mistress by Night by Stacey Reid. Now, I really love Stacey Reid's historical romances, and there's tons of books that I have not read in her backlist, and this just so happened to be one of them. A lot of her books are on AnyPlay, which is my preferred audiobook platform, and I'm so glad that I picked this one up because it's a very interesting premise. As the title suggests, our heroine is a duchess. She was married very young to a much older gentleman, and they didn't have a terrible relationship. They had a very typical marriage. Like, he wasn't mean or abusive towards her, but she also went into the marriage very like naive. Like, it reminds me of the movie The Duchess with Keira Knightley. Like, she's so idealistic, and she goes in marrying the Duke thinking that they're going to have a really great marriage and he's in love with her, and then realizes, oh, he's taking mistresses, so he doesn't actually love me. And that's kind of how Georgiana was with her first husband. She wanted to be such a good wife to him, and he just basically told her, like, you're not a carnal creature. I love you and respect you, but I'm going to seek my pleasure elsewhere, and definitely did not see to her pleasure in the bedroom. It was mostly for baby making. So they did end up by having a son, but her husband passed away. So she's a widow, and she's a pretty influential duchess. Now, her mother is very much one of those society mamas that's all about connections, and she wants Georgiana to remarry. She's kind of pushing it. Her mother was a daughter of a duke, and she married well, and so she was so excited when Georgiana married a duke as well. So she just wants her daughter, who's still very young, to make another connection, kind of guilt tripping her, saying, oh, your son needs a male figure in his life. Well, when she comes to London, she's talking to her brother, I believe his name is Simon, if I'm not mistaken, because her son's nursemaid disappeared off of their property. Like, one day the nursemaid had taken her son out by the lake, and hours later they didn't come back, and they found her son like alone by the lake, and her son's like 6-ish years old. And she's just like, that is so weird. Like, she loves him, she would not just leave him alone. Something is wrong. Well, her brother knows of this man called the Broker, and Rhys Tremaine, his grandfather was a viscount, but the viscount did not have money, and he kind of pawned his daughter off on this very wealthy merchant so that he could have money, and Rhys's father was abusive towards his mother. So when Rhys was 12 years old, his mother took Rhys and his sister, and she was also pregnant at the time, and just ran. They had lived in poverty for a while, and he was forced as like a young boy to try to find out, what can I do to help my family? Like, my mom is struggling, we have these mouths to feed, but we're not going back to my abusive father. So he started collecting information and selling it for favors. So he has like made investments, he has made some connections and stuff. Even though he is wealthy, and even though he is incredibly powerful because he knows all of these secrets about people in society, like people go to him for secrets, he still is not welcome in the ton. Like, they won't welcome him back into the fold, and his greatest desire is for his sisters to have that respectability. So he's thinking that he needs like kind of like a new mark. He needs somebody who wants a favor from him, and he wants to trade basically their influence in order to get his sisters to have like a debut and have some connections in society in order to marry well. Well, that's where Georgiana comes into play, because she wants to know information like, what I need to track my nursemaid down. Something horrible has happened to her. And when they have their little secret meeting, there are sparks flying. There's sparks flying. And Simon, the brother, even sees this and warns Georgiana away, like, hey, watch him. Like, he doesn't trade anything for money. You're gonna have to do him a favor, so you need to be careful, because I saw the way that you two were looking at each other, and that's like absolutely no go. Like, you need to be respectable, and don't fall into an affair with Rhys Tremaine. But do they listen? No, they don't. The attraction is too great. So Rhys actually asks for his first favor. He asks like for a night with her. This is very unusual. Like, he should be trading for her influence, but he wants a night with her. And once that line is crossed, it's kind of hard to put that horse back in the barn, because it's bolted, and the attraction is so insane between these two. So it kind of looks like he's blown it. He can't have her influence. Their business is conducted, but then her son goes missing. And he's like, okay, well, this is kind of fishy, because first the nursemaid goes missing, and now your son goes missing. I think it's all kind of connected, and he has to discover like what's going on in the background. Who would want to target her family? Is this all about her son? Like, what's going on? And so kind of they're thrown together. Georgiana is being pressured by her family to marry somebody who's respectable and obviously not be seen with Rhys, because he's a nobody. He doesn't have any connections, and his reputation is a little bit unsavory because of what he does. But then she has all these feelings, and it's just I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I gave this book 4 stars. Next, I reread Magic Rises by Elona Andrews. I have been doing a reread of the Kate Daniels series. I do love to reread, and I just had felt that it had been a while since I read the whole thing, so I'm continuing with that. In this book, Kate and Curran have a dilemma. So Curran is the lord of all shapeshifters in Atlanta, and the shapeshifters have a problem. When you're born a shapeshifter, you hit puberty and you are at risk for loopism. So that means that you're basically at risk of turning rogue, like uncontrollable, and lots of kids die when they hit puberty because of this. There is kind of a cure, and it's called Panacea. But the problem is only like a small group of people in Europe make this Panacea, and it's really hard to get. Well, suddenly they have this invitation from a European group of shifters. They want Kate and Curran to go over there to be the mediators for this dispute of land, because Dissandra is a wolf shifter and her father is terrible and basically kind of traded her like chattel, married her to one person. And that marriage lasted like a year, and then he didn't like his daughter being with that person because he wanted something else from another shifter clan. Anyway, he made Dissandra divorce that first husband and then marry the second husband, and now she's pregnant with twins, and each twin is for a different guy. So anyway, there's like this dispute because the inheritance of the children, it depends on like who's the firstborn, and the family who is, you know, the father of the firstborn will get this like disputed land in Europe. Anyway, so they need a neutral party, and they ask Kate and Curran to come over there with their people, with some of their like high-ranking people, to keep the peace and make sure that there's like no doubt of like who is actually rightfully entitled to this land. And in exchange, they'll give them barrels of Panacea, which could potentially save like dozens and dozens of shifter teenagers. So they have to go. They know that it's a trap, but they have to go. And this is an interesting installment of the book. Now, there is one thing that happens, and I remember the first time reading it, I was so annoyed because I was just like, I don't care if Curran has a plan. The way that he is acting, I don't like it. He was like keeping this secret from Kate, and he was acting pretty out of character because another woman was kind of making advances on him, and I was just like so mad at Curran. Like the first time that I read this book, I was so mad. And then rereading it, I liked it a lot more, actually. I reread it a couple of times, but on this reread, I kind of liked it a little bit more. So I'm still gonna keep it at like a 4-star just because compared to the rest of the books in the Kate Daniels series, I'd still rather reread some other ones. Next, I read Praise by Sarah Kate. This is the first book that I've read by Sarah Kate, and it was on the recommendation of Jen from the Book Refuge. This Salacious Players series, it's all about each of the members who founded the Salacious Players Club. Oh my god, tongue twister. They each have a specific kind of kink. So they all had previously like worked together. They were just co-workers, and when that company went under, they decided, hey, why don't we open kind of like a sex club? Because we can cater to a specific niche and market that's the needs are not being met. So like we can open this. And it started off as like a kind of like dating app, and then they're actually going to open a physical club now. So Praise is about the CEO of the company, Emerson, and Charlotte. Charlotte is actually dating Emerson's estranged son. So she has never actually met Emerson. And in the beginning of the book, Charlotte breaks up with her boyfriend. And they were renting an apartment together, and now she wants her deposit back because she just cannot afford to lose $1,000. Well, her boyfriend is a douchebag and basically says, oh, well, since my dad was a co-signer, it's gone to him. So if you want your money, you're gonna have to go. I'll give you his address, but like I'm not going to get it because I'm not talking to him. Like I don't want to talk to him at all. It's okay if I take his money, but like I don't want to talk to him. So Charlotte is just kind of like, well, fuck you, dude. I'm going after my money. And she follows the address, realizes she's in a very affluent part of town. There's a woman there that basically says like, oh, you must be the new girl. You can go in his office. He'll be waiting for you. And she's just kind of like, what? Like what's going on? When Emerson walks in, he looks at her and says, you're supposed to be kneeling when I walk in. And she's just like, what the fuck? What is going on? And she's just like, no, I don't want to kneel. And he's like, you want your money, right? Then you have to kneel. And she's like, damn, what a douchebag. No wonder why my ex-boyfriend doesn't like his dad. But she decides to kneel because she's like, well, fine. I just want my, $1,000. I might as well just kneel. And so she does that. And he starts talking about like some kinky stuff. And she... when she finally admits, she's like, I'm just here for my deposit. I'm your son's ex-girlfriend. He is so embarrassed. So Emerson's kink is having a submissive work as his secretary and just obey him. Like, he doesn't want a brat. He doesn't want somebody who defies him. Like, he just wants somebody to obey him. That is his kink. And Charlotte, who is a professed feminist, she's like, oh, fuck this. Like, no, I am an independent woman, but why does this kind of turn me on a little bit? So she is somebody who's exploring a kink that she didn't know that she had. And after this encounter, after Emerson is so embarrassed because he's just like, what the fuck did I just do? Charlotte is intrigued and he approaches her and offers her a secretary job, like just to apologize. And he also is thinking that if he can get close to Charlotte, if he can kind of help his son and Charlotte rekindle their relationship, there might be a chance for him to rebuild a relationship with his son. All he wants to do is talk to him. Like, his son will not answer his calls. He won't answer his texts. Like, it's very one-sided. It's so sad when he opens up his text messages to his son. It's very just one-sided, no responses. And he so desperately wants a relationship with his son. And we know it's because he found out about Emerson's job and he's disgusted by it. So he's just trying to rebuild that relationship. But of course, having Charlotte, somebody who he is kind of attracted to as a secretary, is going to create some problems. So this is an age gap taboo kinky romance that I really loved. I thought it was really fun, and I kind of really liked being in the perspective of Charlotte, who was kind of exploring her kinks. She wasn't somebody who was like super involved in the lifestyle, so I feel like more the elements, or the story was actually more focused on the tabooness of the relationship, like, oh, we shouldn't want each other because I used to date your son, and you know, I want a relationship with my son, and if I do something with you, like, and he finds out, then that's a real no-go. Like, I will never be able to have a relationship with my son. So I really liked the focus on the tabooness of the relationship. That was a good time. But also the kinkiness, there was definitely some cool kink scenes because the opening of the club is happening, and we see some of what the club has to offer. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I enjoyed it a lot. Next, I reread Taken by the Horde King by Zoe Draven. This is the fourth book in the Horde Kings of Drakkar. Fifth book, I'm sorry. It's the fifth book in the Horde Kings of Drakkar. Think Ice Planet Barbarians, but with Dothraki aliens instead of blue ice planet aliens. So more of like a deserty planet than icy planet. Anyway, I love this series so much. And this, I think, is my favorite book of the series. I really enjoyed the way that this book started off. And even though I talked about it before, I'm going to talk about it again. Mina is a human, and all of these books are between a Drakkar and a human. Mina is a human, and her group of humans is like, they're not doing so great. None of the humans on this world are doing great because they never were given the tools when they were dropped off on this planet to survive. They don't know how to work the land. They don't know which animals they're allowed to hunt because they don't understand the seasons. And the Drakkar, who are natives to this planet, are very unwilling to work with humans. They're just like, you stay in your designated areas and we won't bother you. Don't break our rules. But they are kind of dying. And so like her group of humans is headed up by a real asshole named Ben, and he's decided to ally himself with these Drakkarian witches who they're like, why do we have to listen to the Horde Kings? I will make sure that your faction, your group of humans thrives and survives if you help us take them down. And in order to take them down, in order to wipe out this red mist that's popped up on the planet, which, like I said, it's the fifth book in the series, you'd have to read the previous books to know what's going on. But in order to do that, I need you to capture a Horde King so that we can take his heart. They're gonna do like this like blood ritual sacrifice thing. Well, Mina is one of the humans who can walk in this red fog without being affected by it. And Rowan, who is our Horde King for this book, he is set to guard the area where the red fog, like the border between their land that's not affected and where the red fog is. And every single morning he goes into the red fog just a little bit to see how long it takes it to sap his powers and his strength. And he's just kind of testing the waters to see, can he build a bit of resistance to it? Like, what's going on? He wants more information. And he feels like he owes it to his people to be the one to do this. He's not going to send somebody else to do this, to be put in danger. And when he's in the red fog, this woman comes to him. It's Mina. And the Drakkarian witches told her how to say, I am yours, Horde King, in their language. And Rowan has this knowing when he sees Mina. He's just like, yes, she is mine. She is basically my soulmate. Like Kakari, which is their goddess, she is given her to me. Like, there's no other explanation why I feel so pulled to this woman. And so he is being drawn in further to the red fog, and Mina is actually drawing him closer to the dead mountain where he can be captured. So he's been tricked. And when he finds out that he's been tricked, he is like, wow, everything that my father told me, he has a lot of hangups about his father. Everything that my father told me about women and how they're just like, you know, the downfall of men and they will just ruin you. Well, that's true. And I kind of feel embarrassed that it took like one look at this woman for me to forget like my purpose, my people, and now I'm captured by this stupid human group and I hate her and I want revenge against her. Meanwhile, Mina just knows she has like this feeling. She has some powers and she is just now exploring them, but she had like this knowing when she captured Rowan that this was wrong. Like she has like this deep feeling like this is wrong, this is wrong. And so she ends up by helping him escape. The nuance of their relationship, how it started on this like very bad foot. Like how can you forgive somebody who captured you for you to be tortured by your enemies? Like how can you forgive that person? And like how far will you go to seek revenge even on a person who you have this connection with, this unexplainable connection with? So I just really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Next is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. So this book was not on my radar really. Like I said, I hadn't been on social media a lot, but I have seen this book cover. I didn't know anything about it, and when I was chatting with Crystal one day, she just let me know. She's like, oh, I'm reading Still Beating now. I'm a little worried because of the hype. Well, for me, I didn't have any hype because I wasn't reading into other people's opinions of it since I wasn't really on social media when everybody was first reading it. And so I decided, I was like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to do a buddy read of Still Beating? She's like, yeah, let's do buddy reads. So we read it at the same time. And I'm so glad that I did because it was so much fun, like talking about like each part of the book. The book is split into a couple parts. It was so fun talking about that, like our predictions and stuff. Crystal laughed at me when I was first reading the first few chapters. I was like, oh, is this just gonna be like a I'm in love with my sister's fiance kind of taboo romance? And she laughed at me because, like I said, I didn't read the synopsis. I just picked it up, like just dove right in. And the first chapter is Cora. She's at a bar with her sister, Mandy. Is her sister named Mandy? And her fiance, Dean. They have been like high school sweethearts. They've been together for like 15 years and they're getting married. Well, Cora and Dean have never gotten along. They definitely tease each other a lot. And I was getting like the vibes, like the way that they were teasing each other. I'm like, they have secret feelings for each other. And I was like, Crystal, is this like a taboo romance? And she just like laughed because obviously she's not going to tell me. And then the plot twist. It wasn't really a plot twist. I'm sure it was in the synopsis, but she stays out at the bar and she keeps drinking even after her sister and Dean leave, but then she gets robbed, so she doesn't have her wallet, she can't call an Uber, and nobody's answering, so she has to bite her tongue and call the last person that she wants to, Dean, to come pick her up. While she's waiting outside, there's this weird dude that like kind of tries to come on to her. She's getting very ick vibes, and when Dean gets there, he's trying to like usher her into the car. This dude's being real creepy, being like, ooh, is that your girl? And stuff, and Dean's like, absolutely not, no. They're in the car, and all of a sudden, police lights come on. Well, it's a trap. It's not really police. This dude, who is being so weird, captures them and puts them in a basement, chains them up, and he just like, we're gonna have a lot of fun. So I'm like, oh my god, this is a dark romance, and I should have known because the cover of the book, it reminds me a lot of Deliver by Pam Godwin. A lot of the aspects of the book remind me of Deliver by Pam Godwin, and she was the one to kind of recommend Jennifer Hartman when we had her on a live show on Jen's channel. So the premise of this book is that this guy who's completely fucked up, assaults Cora, and Dean is forced to watch, but then eventually he makes Dean force himself on Cora as well. And this is his fucked up game that he's apparently played with a bunch of other people. Like he just says like, yeah, you say you're getting out of here, but so did so-and-so and her stepbrother. Like, they're dead. They're buried in my backyard. So what's most interesting about this book, my favorite part hands down of the book, which is weird to say, was the scenes in captivity, because the way that Jennifer Hartman explored the emotions and like the way that the trauma was depicted, I thought was very interesting. She's not a person who's too gratuitous in describing the scenes of like the assault. It's very much like you're in Cora's point of view and she disassociates herself from what's happening to her. She tries to focus on other things. Dean actually becomes a focal point of which she concentrates on him in the way that Dean's like, just concentrate on me rubbing your wrists. Like that's all you need to focus on and like it'll be over soon type of thing. And the way that their relationship changes because of this trauma, because of how they had to rely on each other because they don't have anyone else. They're alone. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say because this is only a third of the book, them being in captivity, but they do make it out. And I was really excited to see how that relationship would translate into the real world, now that they have been rescued, how is it going to affect their everyday life? How are they going to go back to normalcy, and what is their relationship going to be like? Because like I said, they did not get along before this, but then they went through this trauma together that nobody can truly understand. There's aspects of what they went through that they're not sharing with other people. And it's like, how can you just like insert yourself back into your life and act like nothing really momentous happened? So I thought that this book was so interesting. The way that Dean and Cora dealt with their trauma was similar in a lot of ways, but different too. And I don't want to get into too much because it'll be kind of spoilers, but I do want to say, in general, I enjoyed this book, but I never liked Cora's character. Cora's character was very unlikable to me. Even from the first chapter, I wasn't loving her. And part of the reason why I didn't like Cora's character is because she's supposed to be like 29. Her and her sister are only like 10 months apart, and her sister Mandy's like 30. She didn't feel like she was written as a mature character. Like, she felt very young, like in early 20s. That first chapter, I was like, there's no way that this girl is 29. She just seems a little bit childish. And so I always thought from the very beginning, before she went through that, like, I thought that Cora's character was childish. And I hate to say that she acted childish like after, you know, being rescued, but in some ways she was very like selfish, self-centered. She had lots of self-esteem issues going on. And that's another thing that I did not really appreciate. If Jennifer Hartman took out all of the negative things that she was projecting on Mandy, the older sister, I might have liked it a little bit more. The way that her character was handled in the book, it was so obvious that Jennifer Hartman like wanted you, the reader, to dislike the older sister. In the first chapter, Cora talks about how her older sister's like the perfect one. She's like the bombshell one. She has her hair all perfect, and she dresses in the most beautiful clothes, and she likes to get her nails done, and she likes to wear fake eyelashes and microbladed eyebrows and stuff like that. And I don't like when we shame women and try to characterize them as superficial because they like to dress or spend money on certain things. Like, I just hate that. I hate when girls describe other girls this way. So you can tell that she's very jealous of her older sister, and I think that Jennifer Hartman characterized the older sister as somebody who was vapid and selfish. She wanted the reader to not like Mandy. Even in Dean's point of view, Dean also brought up like the stuff, like she wore fake eyelashes and stuff. It was just, I didn't love it. I thought it was unnecessary. If she would have changed the dynamic between Cora and Mandy, I think it would have been more impactful and more heartbreaking. So yeah, there is that. Also, another thing like Crystal and I discussed was the way that recovery from trauma was handled. I mean, you can tell like they had a lot of stuff to come to terms with. I don't feel like Jennifer Hartman, or I wish that Jennifer Hartman would have explored more of the options that Cora utilized toward the end to make an actual like healthy recovery. There was stuff that she was doing that was unhealthy for a lot of the time. And when we finally get to know like what she did, what was the methods that she used to recover, it was all summarized in like a paragraph. In hindsight, like, oh, I did this, this, and this to recover. And I'm just like, I kind of wish that healthy methods of recovery were highlighted a little bit more, but I understand that the appeal of this book is that this situation was so fucked up, and these characters were so fucked up after it, and their decisions that they were making obviously were unhealthy and quite a bit toxic, and that is the drama of the situation that I feel like everybody was like drawn into, which, I mean, it was very compelling. Like, I couldn't put it down for sure. I would actually message Crystal, I'm like, hey, what chapter are you on? I don't want to get too far ahead of you, because I wanted to be able to talk to her as I read things, and I wanted to theorize with her and know her opinions without knowing where it was going. So anyway, I give this book 4 stars. I think it's very interesting. I'm interested in reading some more Jennifer Hartman. I know that Tori had posted a video of like a guide to Jennifer Hartman that I do want to check out. I want to know where to go from here. I don't know if all of her books are dark. I'm pretty sure she probably writes emotional books no matter what, but I don't know if they have like such darkness as like captive romance. Next is Eyes on Me by Sarah Kate. So this is the second book in the Salacious Players Club. So now we move on to another of the founding members of this club. And we meet Garrett in the first book. We know that he has a voyeur fetish, and we find out that Garrett has not like had sex in a long time. He's feeling a little jaded about that, like nothing's really getting him going anymore. And one night he decides to download some apps for cam girls, and so he's looking, he's not finding what he wants, and then finally he sees something that he likes and he opens it. He's like, why do I recognize that voice? Why do I recognize this voice? Well, then finally he sees his stepsister, Mia. So this is a taboo. Again, Sarah Kate likes to combine, at least for the series, tabooness plus kink, and it's fascinating. I love me a good taboo story, so I was like, stepsister, stepbrother romance, bring it. It's also an age gap because I believe that their parents got married when Garrett was 20-ish, 20, 22. And she was 12. So there is a significant age gap. Mia is just like, oh, my stepbrother's always hated me, and he always calls her like a brat and stuff like that. And he avoids family get-togethers. They're at like this lakeside cabin or whatever for a couple of weeks, and they want Garrett to come over, but he like is trying to avoid them. But then after he finds out that his stepsister Mia is being a cam girl and he's getting turned on by it, he's like, maybe I should go. Let's see what happens when I go to this lakeside cabin. Now, I will say I did not enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed Praise. I just didn't feel like the relationship between Mia and Garrett was, I didn't feel like that connection between them. I didn't feel the love, sure, the tabooness of the situation, but there was just a lot of like hot and cold going on. Though there is kind of a reason why Garrett is so hot and cold, I still look back on the relationship and I still don't understand how we go from what they were doing to deep love. Like that wasn't there for me. I feel like possibly it could be, but it just wasn't. He has seen her doing her cam girl stuff. He's also interacted with her as somebody that she doesn't know. So there's a bit of a secret identity trope going on here where she is unaware that Garrett knows that she is a cam girl. All she knows is he's suddenly here at the lake house and he's being a little bit flirty. She's always had a crush on him, and she's just kind of like, okay, what's going on? Like, what is this? Am I reading into this because I have always had a crush on him, or is he truly flirting with me, and what has changed because he's always been mean to me? So yeah, I gave this book 3.5 stars because it just wasn't quite as enjoyable. I will say that there was a really great scene between Emerson and Garrett that I loved. The way that Emerson was there for Garrett when he needed somebody, like he truly needed somebody, and he wanted to push everybody away and deal with it like he's always dealt with things alone, like keeping everything close to the vest, not wanting to let anybody in to see his pain. And Emerson just kind of like, no, I'm gonna be here for you. Like that's what friends do. And I was just like, I love this so much. So that I liked that scene between Emerson and Garrett more than I liked any of the scenes really between Garrett and Mia. So. And then, of course, I had all the books that I read for my Louisiana vlog this weekend. Shadows by Kristen Proby. I really liked it. It's set in New Orleans, has a bit of paranormal element. The heroine is a witch. The hero is just a regular Joe, but he does work for the FBI. She can see ghosts, and all of a sudden, these dead girls are appearing to her. They have to find out who is murdering them. So I like that one. I gave it 4 stars, or 3.5 stars, and I rounded up a little bit. Next, I picked up Sweet Home Louisiana by Erin Nicholas. I have read some other books by Erin Nicholas, and there's some that I like more than others. This one just didn't work for me at all. I ended up by DNFing it. It's a second chance romance. It's been 12 years since these high school sweethearts have seen each other. She decided to go move to San Francisco with her mom's family because she feels like if she's with Owen, her emotions are too big, too much. She ends up by doing stuff that is kind of dangerous and terrible, like just acting out of character, and she doesn't want to feel that craziness. So that's why she does not want to have anything to do with her hometown or Owen. But there's some sort of something going on with the plot where she has to stay in her hometown for like the next 30 days. So it's forced proximity. Like I said, I didn't like their relationship. I didn't like the background of their story and her reasons why she left. Most of it to do with like her parents' relationship, and I just thought it was kind of dumb and I was uninterested. So that was a DNF for me. Say You'll Be Mine by Maria Louise, which I'm pretty sure her last name is spelled Lewis, but I don't know. My great grandmother's name was Maria Louise and I keep saying that, so Maria Lewis maybe? Anyway, I like this book. This was really great. It's the first book in her Nola Heart series. I will be continuing it. It's again another second chance romance, which second chance romances in general are just not my favorite trope. I just don't love it because normally the reasons why they kind of broke up in the first place don't make sense to me or don't warrant a 12-year gap. Like this, it was another 12-year gap, I believe. But she has to return to New Orleans because her grandmother is sick and she feels a little bit directionless. She doesn't have this set career path. She's always kind of bounced around careers. So she's like, just why not? I can stay in New Orleans and take care of my grandmother visit with my cousin Anna, who owns a lingerie shop in the French Quarter, but then she runs into her high school sweetheart Brady. Now, she has not kept up with Brady at all. She has no idea what's going on. She expects him to be a lawyer because their grandparents are really close, and her parents wanted her to be a doctor. His grandparents wanted Brady to be a lawyer. Well, neither of those career paths works out for them. And they keep running into each other. Her grandmother is a little crazy and she's meddlesome. She decides to get this fake fiance so that Shaylin can show Brady that she's moved on. And like Shaylin had no idea that her grandmother did this, and she kind of has to roll with it, and it creates some issues. So it was just an interesting ride, and I kind of really liked it. And I feel like this was the most accurate representation of New Orleans culture that I have read. So, which makes sense because Maria lives in Louisiana, in New Orleans. I gave this one 4 stars, and the last one is Tall, Dark, and Cajun by Sandra Hill. This one was a little bit over the top. This one's a little bit over the top with all the Cajun-isms and stereotypes, but it was also very rom-com-y. Like it was supposed to be. You can feel like that was her goal, was to be over the top. The jokes, the way that the characters responded to each other in almost like an insta-love way. That's just the vibe that she was going for. The main reason why I gave this book 3 stars, like I feel like it might have been higher, but the main reason I gave this book 3 stars is because of the conflict at the end. I didn't like it. I did not like it. The response between both characters, the author went too hard. I was like, you guys are intentionally hurting each other. And I hate when the characters say stuff that it's like, you can never take that stuff back. And once you hear it, you're always going to be thinking like, was that how they really felt? Like, I don't know. I just felt like what they said was maybe not unforgivable, but it's hard to come back from that, you know? Anyway, so those are all the books that I read last week. And I won't lie, after doing my Louisiana vlog, I was kind of like, I don't know what to read. I don't know what I'm in the mood for. So we'll see what I pick up for the rest of the week. I still have to do my reread of A Court of Thorns and Roses because we have a live show next Tuesday where we're going to be reviewing that one. I'm very excited to listen to A Court of Thorns and Roses. The graphic audio is on Anyplay, and I do want to listen to that, but I also want to read it because I've been using my tabs to mark certain things that maybe could connect the different worlds that Sarah J. Maas has created. And that's the whole point of this reading vlog, and I'm very excited about it. Okay, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye, guys.